The dropping of the atomic bombs on Japan marked the end of World War II. 180,000 people had died from the explosions, and 132,000 more were killed from the radiation. In creating this powerful weapon, not only was Oppenheimer's life changed, but with his creation, he changed the world. Before Hiroshima, theoretical physics seemed to have almost no practical application in the material world. In his creation, he created an almost inseparable connection between theoretical physics and the military, which is the most dangerous combination to the future of the world. He called himself the destroyer of the worlds. Oppenheimer was born in New York City on April 22, 1904. As a little boy, he already showed an interest in science, but first with chemistry. He took an interest in physics while he attended Harvard in 1925. There, he was able to work with J.J. Thomson, the discoverer of the electron, and Max Born, who formulated the behavior of subatomic particles. Oppenheimer earned his PhD after 1 year in the University of Göttingen in Germany in 1926, at the age of 22.
From there, he became credited with being a founding father of the American School of Theoretical Physics. He was a physics professor at Berkeley and Caltech. He met Ernest Lawrence in Berkeley, whom he had collaborated with on the separation of uranium. Lawrence was the inventor of the cyclotron, a machine which used a clever arrangement of electric and magnetic fields to push particles to high energies and use them to bombard atomic nuclei. Oppenheimer had made important research in astrophysics, nuclear physics, the quantum field theory, and his contributions to the theory of cosmic showers led to the descriptions of the quantum tunneling theory. In the 1930s, he was the first to have written papers about the existence of the black holes, though their existence was not confirmed until 1967, after his death.
He was the second greatest physicist of all times, next to Albert Einstein. His most important discovery of all was the possibility of accelerating deuteron to much higher energies than neutrons alone, and deuterons could be used to bombard positively charged atomic nuclei at high energies. This is the most important discovery because it is this discovery that made possible the creation of the atomic bomb. Oppenheimer wasn't that much into politics until he met Jean Tatlock, a communist. Their relationship sparked Oppenheimer's interest in radical politics. In 1941, the beginning of World War II, Oppenheimer joined the effort to develop the atomic bomb at Berkeley. Germany had already been trying to create an atomic bomb, and President Franklin Roosevelt, having gotten a letter from Albert Einstein prompting the building of a bomb, called on General Leslie Groves. With Oppenheimer's new interest in politics, he met Groves and they became great friends.
As a result of this friendship, he was appointed scientific director of the Manhattan Project in 1942. They set to work in the desert of Los Alamos, New Mexico, near Oppenheimer's ranch. As a project director, he had more than 3,000 people working on the bomb under his direction, and they would spend months going over experimental data, revising estimates of the amount of enriched uranium needed for a viable weapon. The first explosion of the bomb was on the Trinity site in Alamogordo, New Mexico, on July 16, 1945. It worked.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
He knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
Japan's bombing of Pearl Harbor brought a sense of nationalism to the U.S. On July 25, 1945, General Leslie Groves wrote the order for the use of atomic bomb on Japanese cities. This was approved by President Truman and Secretary of War Stimson at Potsdam.
The first atomic bomb, uranium, was named Little Boy and was dropped in Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. Three days later, a plutonium bomb named Fat Man was dropped on Nagasaki. On August 10, 1945, Tokyo finally surrendered with the condition that Hirohito remain emperor. The formal end was on September 2, 1945, which became known as Victory in Japan Day. Oppenheimer was ultimately given the name Father of the Bomb and praised after the surrender. Meanwhile, the race to create another more powerful bomb was on. Tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union grew, as Britain and America left their Soviet ally out of the project to develop atomic weapons. This gave Stalin more reason not to trust America.
If atomic bombs are to be added to the arsenals of the warring world, or to the arsenals of nations preparing for war, then the time will come when mankind will curse the name of Los Alamos and Hiroshima. The people of this world must unite, or they will perish. This war, that has ravaged so much of the earth, has written these words. The atomic bomb has spelled them out for all men to understand. In the course of the Manhattan Project, some spies were working undercover and stole secrets of the bomb and sent it to the Soviet Union. When Lewis Strauss, a member of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, heard that the Soviets had tested their first bomb in 1949 through the system he had in place to detect any foreign atomic test, the U.S. no longer had the monopoly of the nuclear weapons. The desire to create a hydrogen bomb, a more destructive weapon, came into being. Strauss believed that it was important to have a monopoly of nuclear weapons, and his seat in the Atomic Energy Commission allowed him to influence President Truman and later Eisenhower in issues concerning nuclear weapons and any other atomic-related government activities.
President Truman called for the crash program, the program to build a hydrogen bomb. But Oppenheimer didn't want to take any part of this. He said, "These weapons were not really weapons, but were forces of destruction that would lead to the extinction of the human race." Tensions grew between Strauss and Oppenheimer over the creation of the H-bomb. He disagreed with powerful advocates for the creation of even larger and more terrifying nuclear bombs. It was because of this his hated enemies conspired to take him down, strongly thinking he was a threat. Strauss had talked with Eisenhower about taking Oppenheimer out of the crash program, mostly because he didn't trust Oppenheimer, simply for his consistent opposition to the creation of the H-bomb. He was taken to trial because people thought that his opposition had something to do with his close affiliations with communists.
He was stripped of his security clearance and was no longer allowed to be consulted about the weapon he had created, nor was he allowed to visit his laboratory he had built. This led to his destruction. Oppenheimer fell into a depression. He continued to write and lecture and was even invited to a dinner at the White House by President Kennedy. In this dinner, sympathetic figures in the government unanimously voted on presenting Oppenheimer with the Enrico Fermi Award as an apt way to express Oppenheimer's rehabilitation. Kennedy himself wanted to present the award to Oppenheimer. Unfortunately, he was assassinated before it could happen. President Johnson ended up presenting the award to Oppenheimer in 1963, in which Oppenheimer turned to Johnson and said, "I think it is just possible, Mr. President, that it has taken some charity and some courage for you to make this award today. That would seem to me a good augury for all our futures."
By 1965, Oppenheimer's health was failing, and he was coming closer to his death. When asked by a student if he felt any regret at all about Hiroshima, he said, "My own feelings about responsibility and guilt have always had to do with the present, and so far in this life, that has been more than enough to occupy me." Oppenheimer died from throat cancer on February 18, 1967. He had given the world a great and extraordinary, though terrible, gift. Great and extraordinary in that science has been changed, but terrible in that it has changed in favor of war, and has become the military's first priority. The nuclear arms race is on, but the life of the starter, the creator of the weapon to destroy, turned to a tragedy, even if he was once America's most acclaimed scientist, during and after the war.